people's psychiatric meds away is going to be beneficial for the health of this country, you have another thing coming. We are going to see
actually, I do think it's a good idea. Well, hang on.
Drug epidemic.
Hang on.
Hang on. We're gonna.
No, you hang on. You hang on. To answer that point, I do. America is ridiculously over-medicated, particularly in the area of antidepressant drugs and anxiety drugs and so on. And Britain's going the same way.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great.
There are millions of young people.
You know what happens?
Hang on, Francesca. Hang on. Don't start shouting. Don't start shouting. Let me just finish. Let me put a question.
Francesca Fiorentini gets completely wrecked on this Piers Morgan Uncensored panel. They're discussing RFK Jr.'s plan to make this country healthy again, or MAHA. And Francesca Fiorentini just doesn't get it. She just thinks we should just continue to throw taxpayer-funded money at the issue, and that will solve everything. Let's see Francesca Fiorentini get humiliated on this Piers Morgan Uncensored panel.
Yeah, I think the backdrop to all of this that's really important is that AI is advancing at a speed that is unfathomable to our current minds. We are bringing online the equivalent of billions, if not soon trillions of hours of PhD-level intelligence, human intelligence, to find new discoveries about health and wellness and things that can improve our lives. And this cannot be understated. So as much as we want to debate an individual and their ideas, in the backdrop, the technological thrust and movement forward is just really the most powerful force in the entire world, that it will transform the way we think about health and wellness. I mean, over the past couple of years, I've become the most measured person in human history, proving that you can, in fact, measure the biological age of your organs in a robust fashion. We can begin doing this for a very large number of people. So I think we're at a turning point in terms of the way we think about health and wellness, where instead of responding to symptoms, we can actually get ahead of it. And I think it actually answers a really important question. What is the West fighting for? I think it would be pretty cool if America said, we are going to become the healthiest nation on planet Earth, that we're going to have the longest lifespan of any country in the world. It's a really bold endeavor. It would be something that we could lock in onto. I think everyone benefits from positive health.
And what about RFK himself? Do you think he's a force for good, or are you worried about some of the stuff he does and says?
Francesca Fiorentini trying to push her healthcare for all thing. That's their only go-to. That's like their only solution that they know to our health problems. Just give out free healthcare.
He is an atypical person in the job, and there's a mixed level of opinions of his, but that's true for anybody. If you bring anyone into this position, there's an easy way to take them down. He's well-intentioned. He has different ideas. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I think he will respect science. I think he will move forward with science, and I think that he'll be good for the health of America.
Okay, Grant, you've been very patient. Thank you for that. You're a big fan of RFK. I've got to say, I like him personally. I've enjoyed interviewing him. He's a very smart guy. That is without any doubt. I think he's a smart guy. He's a big thinker. And frankly, I always say to people, I've been saying this a lot recently, if you look at pictures from New York or LA or Miami or anywhere you like from 1920 and you compare them to today, what do you see? No fat people, right? You just see a bunch of fit-looking people, albeit with a smaller health span expectancy because of disease and so on. But Americans, like the British, have just got very fat and immobile with all the disease that comes with that. They're eating crap food in the main and so on. And here you've got a guy, RFK, who's 70-odd. He looks very fit himself, so he practices what he preaches. And he just wants to think differently about what America is doing to itself with food. I mean, that alone, as Deborah said, I think is a good way to start, isn't it?
Hey, look, I mean, all you got to do is look around the country, just like you said in your opening, 355 million people. Most of them look older than they are. They're definitely overweight. You got autism breaking out in this country at great rates, infertility, sperm counts down. Infant mortality goes on and on and on. Anybody that does not want to confront that with new eyes, like your self-described journalist down there in the red, it seems to be here just to antagonize, not solve a problem.
Self-described entrepreneur.
ADD, ADHD, depression level.
Don't forget, she's also a self-described comedian too. Don't forget that. She's supposedly a comedian.
I think 25% of the country's on some kind of medication that's below 25 years old. And we consume more medication in this one country with 350 million people than the entire planet combined. And anyone that doesn't want to confront that, like Robert Kennedy is, and by the way, he helped get Donald Trump voted in as a mandate. The country wants change, and it is willing to confront the status quo.
I also think with him, Francesca, there are some, definite disingenuous attempts to misrepresent him. I asked him categorically, is he anti-vaccination, period? He said absolutely not. And in fact, his own kids have been immunized against various things. He's very skeptical, as many people are, about the COVID vaccines, particularly the mRNA vaccines. I was with, for what it's worth, one of the top cancer experts in Britain for lunch a couple of days ago, who was utterly scathing about the long-term impact of the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, and says that they're reaping a whirlwind in the world of cancer, for example, as a result of the vaccines. Not to say that I personally believe they saved many lives, but did we have enough time to examine the potential consequences? Almost certainly not. So he's been skeptical about that, but he's not anti-vaccine, as many people like to portray him.
Except that he founded an organization, the Children's Health Defense League, that is straight up against vaccinations. They are selling onesies for babies that says, unvaxxed and unafraid, right? Like, that's what they're doing. They're an anti-vax organization. That's what he has done for decades now. I just want to name, trust me, if we think that ripping...
Francesca, if he was completely against vaccinations, then why would his own kids be vaccinated? So that charity that she's talking about, as far as I know, has only been fighting the jab, the COVID vaccines. That's the only thing that they've been going up against. As far as I know, I might be wrong. I am not an expert in that organization. So either what I just said is wrong, or Francesca Fiorentini is lying, which she is not above lying in order to get her point across.
People's psychiatric meds away is going to be beneficial for the health of this country. You have another thing coming. We are going to see.
Actually, I do think it's a good idea.
Massive
hang on.
drug epidemic.
Hang on.
We're gonna.
No, you hang on. To answer that point, I do. America is ridiculously over-medicated, particularly in the area of antidepressant drugs and anxiety drugs and so on. And Britain's going the same way.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great.
There are millions of young people.
You know what happens?
Hang on, Francesca.
I know you
hang on. Don't start shouting.
A private little
Don't start shouting.
Let me just finish. You asked
let
me
me put a question to you.
I bet money that Francesca's on drugs right now.
Francesca, let me put a question to you.
Not
hang on, guys. Hang on. Can you both please hang on?
What happens is,
Francesca,
people's medications away.
Can't stop.
Let me make a point, please.
Hey,
let me make my
Piers,
point.
Can I just
Let
say
them
for a minute,
respond.
I feel like I'm.
Everyone stop talking for a
I'm on
moment.
a panel.
Francesca, the point I'm making is America has 80% of the world painkiller consumption. 80%, right? You have millions of don't respond yet, millions of young people who are taking completely unnecessary, mind-bending drugs for things like anxiety, depression, often self-diagnosed. And guess what happens? You then have a load of weirdo, loner kids running around with their brains scrambled who commit mass shootings and stuff like that. There is a direct correlation. And we're going the same way in Britain. Young people are getting massively over-medicated. So I am actually in favor of RFK trying to pull America away from its addiction to mind-bending drugs.
There's a real life.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's a reasonable base position to take. Like, who's going to be out there? Who out there has problems with this other than lunatics like Francesca Fiorentini right here? You know, what Piers and RFK, what they're saying is that we have an overdependence on these drugs. That it's just like we kind of just use these as to solve everything. We're not saying let's take them away completely for people who might actually need it, but he's saying that we're too overdependent on it, and so maybe we need to cut back on this stuff. And for some reason, Francesca Fiorentini just takes it as, oh, we're saying we need to take it away from everybody. That's what we want to do. We just want to just take these all away.
Example for what happens when you kick people off of painkillers, which I agree. Painkillers were overused, specifically the Sackler family, when it comes to OxyContin, right? We all know this infamous case got millions of people addicted to OxyContin when they didn't need to be on such a heavy opioid, right? And so what happened? Rightfully, doctors started rescinding those scripts, which was good, but then people were already addicted. So they sought painkillers on the black market, which were mostly just heroin, opioids, fentanyl, and whatnot. And ask anyone who studies these issues, it made it worse. Meaning we need to understand that when
She
you
wants to
just
legalize
rip
drugs.
meds, when
wants
you
to
rip
legalize
meds
all
away
these
from
drugs.
people, no. When you rip meds away from people, you actually have to
Should've put 'em
have
on the meds
some
in the
kind of
first place.
fallback that helps them and rehabilitates them. Otherwise, they go to the street to buy street drugs. Everybody knows this. It's well proven. But again, what do I know? I'm not trying to hawk supplements. Here's what I'll say.
Can we just go back to talk
RFK
about
Jr.
the health issues? Because I think I'm really hoping that we can have that discussion, because I think, and I
Please.
really appreciate you all being open-minded, that he's bringing a new tone to the investigation and really talking about diagnosing disease early. And I love the AI approach. We have reams of data in our electronic medical records, and we're not using them. Data should be used, and we can anonymize it, and we can look at what people's risk factors are, and we can do so much with the information we already have, and we can find solutions. I hear you talk about Texas and the immunization rates there. That issue is in one of our very culturally special groups in West Texas. That has had a vaccine exemption for decades. It's in, we all know our Amish and Mennonites have always historically been vaccine hesitant. And I think, so don't group that situation in Texas with the rest of the country. And let's remember what he said in the hearing. He made it very clear to every mom out there that his children were immunized about childhood vaccines.
Yeah.
And what we've done wrong in public health is we didn't explain that COVID vaccines were nothing like the childhood vaccines, and that the childhood vaccines, like many of the diseases, you get it once, you don't get it again. And this is getting the children to have that disease without getting the deadly consequences. That is not what the COVID vaccine was designed to do. It wasn't designed to prevent against infection. And if you look at the vaccine hesitancy rates, they've doubled since COVID. So we have to start addressing these things. We can't just ignore
And
them.
Deborah, let me ask you, Deborah, I mean, given that you were the face of COVID.
I mean, absolutely. Like the jab completely, like even people who might have just been completely pro-vax before now are definitely questioning it a lot more. And the jab did that because you just wanted to push and force the jab. And people are like, well, clearly the jab didn't work. Well, what about these other vaccines that I took? Did those work? Are those really a thing? Why do we have to take these? And it makes people question everything, and it kind of ruined it for it all.
From the Trump presidency at the time. Do you share, this doctor who I was with, do you share the concerns about the longer term negative impact of some of the COVID vaccines?
The messenger RNA vaccine should have been rolled out for the people that were at risk for severe disease, because that's what the vaccine was developed for. But when we say that we're following the science and the data, we need to follow the science and the data. And the science and the data said people primarily over 65 or people with significant comorbidities were at risk for severe disease. Those are the individuals that should have been immunized first. And we should have put our science behind our immunization schedule and protected those most at risk. It went into young people in hospitals before it went into our elderly in nursing homes. That is not following the science and the data. So I am all for following the science and the data, but it shouldn't just be a statement. It should be a reality. And when we don't match what we do in public health to the science and the data, that is when we get into trouble. And that's when we start to fracture trust with the American people.
Okay, Brian, again, you're going through this extraordinary experiment with your own body. And I guess we'll see, proof will be in the pudding, right? If you're still here in 100 years' time, we're all going to be going the Brian Johnson route. But if you're RFK right now, what do you think are the biggest priorities for public health in America?
Yeah, I think one is getting the direction correct. I think that if America wanted to become the healthiest planet, healthiest country in the entire world, that is the right direction.
Wait a minute. Experiments. This guy, Zombie Toby Maguire, I think I've heard about this dude. Isn't this dude like using all these scientific things to try to keep his body young or something? This is wild. Yeah, Project Blueprint or something, like an anti-aging thing. I'm no scientist, no doctor. I don't know much about what he's trying to do, but I could already tell he looks horrible. He looks like a freaking zombie. Zombie Toby Maguire, he looks like. He looks like the least healthiest person on this panel. So yeah, I don't think whatever he's doing is good. I could already tell it. You could already see this. That's what common sense does. You could sometimes just look at something and be like, yeah, this guy doesn't look like the most healthiest person. I mean, this whole time when they're talking, sometimes I'll look over, it's like, what is this guy's deal? And then Piers Morgan says, oh, you're doing this experiment with your body. And I was like, wait a minute. And it all clicked. And I was like, wait a minute. Is this that one dude who's like trying to not age or something? Experiment concluded. It turns out, don't do what this guy's doing.
Right now, I think we're trying to fight over what is the source of the problem. But generically speaking, over 40% of the U.S. population is obese. I recently went to India, and I was shocked that the air pollution was so bad. It was like smoking 4 cigarettes per day, but nobody had an air purifier. Nobody had a mask. And I thought, how is this possible? They are so normalized to such a tragedy. I mean, babies are breathing this air. And I came back to the U.S., and I saw almost everyone I saw was obese. And I thought, we have the same problems here, and I'm normalized to it. I couldn't see it. I'm oblivious to it. So I think we have a very serious problem. We are a terribly unhealthy country. It is bad for our work. It is bad for our play. It is bad for our family. It leads us all to be manic. It is a really terrible situation. So what I'm hopeful for is this is a wake-up call for all of us, that we can come together in a goal that we want to be the healthiest country in the world. And we have the fortuitous situation that we have the best technology in the entire world. If we can actually incorporate technology into our healthcare system in a way that's sensible and practical, I think we really could lead the world. So to me, I'm very bullish on this. But I mean, this is my first panel, I have to say, and I'm not very good at jumping in and making inflammatory remarks and like talking over people. So I need to get better at this. But I mean, I think really this is like a really cool moment for us as a country, for us to find a new purpose for existence.
Yeah,
Why is it, do you think, that we're so unhealthy? That's my question. Is it because we're one of the only developed nations
that
without
doesn't have
universal
U.S. healthcare?
Is it because millions and millions of Americans die every single day because they don't have access to a doctor?
Spend more money per civilian.
I'll tell you this. I have been.
Yes, we do, because
hang
we
on,
don't have
talk
guaranteed
about
healthcare.
Don't talk about it. Grant, I'll bring you in a moment. But Brian, just to respond to that, the universal healthcare.
Yeah, so over the past 4 years, 4 years ago, I posed this question: are we the first generation that won't die? Now, in any previous generation, it would have been absolutely crazy to pose that question. Of course, death is inevitable. At this moment, though, in the speed at which AI is developing, I think it is the first time in human history where you can ask with a sober face that we may be the first generation who won't die.
I agree.
Now, doing that, I've become the most measured person in the world. And we have measured everything, every biological age of every organ in my body. Also, we've measured the toxins in all foods and all supplements. I can tell you, I've learned the outcome is food is guilty until proven innocent. The toxin load in our foods is insane.
So no, you don't think that access to a doctor helps you stay alive?
So wait, hold tight.
No.
Like, why do you interrupt so much?
Why do you?
Because I'm trying to get to the point. I asked you a very specific question, and you're repeating how you're never gonna die, and all the blood boys that you have on on lock, or like nobody cares, man. We're not as rich as you to live forever. People want to be able to see a doctor. People want to survive when they get a diagnosis.
The point,
People want to get access to meds and not go bankrupt. Medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country. Don't you know that? Or are you too rich to sort of like X yourself out of that situation?
So yeah, again, always a solution. We just need to have taxpayer-funded dollars just thrown at the freaking issue. Yes, that is an issue that people can't afford healthcare, but just having taxpayer-funded healthcare is not the solution. There's many factors that come into play. For starters, we could try to keep ourselves healthy by trying to eat better, trying to exercise more, try to root out of our culture that we could just do whatever we want and indulge ourselves without having to worry about the repercussions because we could just have taxpayer-funded healthcare. People think the land of the free just means, we could just be able to do whatever we want and just feel good about ourselves. We have a responsibility to ourselves to keep ourselves healthy. With the things that we eat, or even financially healthy with the things that we choose to spend our money on. We have all sorts of responsibilities to ourselves. And those are just some of the factors that come into why this country is so unhealthy. But Francesca Fiorentini just thinks that the solution is just throw more taxpayer-funded money in it. What are you guys' thoughts so far? Sound off in the comment section below. Let's continue.
Matt, you are really a
I
rude
was actually
person.
enjoying his answers.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Well,
Someone
Brian.
should be
let me
rude,
finish
man.
my
Someone should
statement,
ask you hard
if I could
questions.
have the-
You know,
if I-
this guy's not going to Piers is
Francesca,
not gonna
let
ask you
him
hard questions.
answer. Let him answer. Brian.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. My goodness. So what I'm saying is we have tested foods of all types, and the toxin load in the U.S. food supply is horrific. It is really, really bad for everyone's health. Now, when you're consuming toxins every day, when children are, adults are, and you don't have control over that, just like breathing bad air, you really get sick. And so is it the case that you don't have a doctor? Is that the problem? Or is it the case that you've got a toxic food supply that's filling you full of these things every single day? And so what I think would be cool is if we did something like we mapped the US food-ome, just like the genome. If we actually mapped 80% of the foods that Americans eat on a daily basis and measured the toxins in the foods, what does the average baby consume on a daily basis of mercury and lead and arsenic? What does the average person consume for BPAs and phthalates and microplastics? To me, that would be like an investigative act where we get a baseline. What is the toxic load of each person? Then does that explain metabolic disease? Does it explain obesity? Is it explaining why there's so many mental health problems? Maybe.
Yeah, I think these are
think that's a
definite
good que- I
questions to
think
be
that's
asked.
interesting.
And the other thing, Grant, to bring Grant in, on the issue of what Brian said about people maybe not dying. You know, I was with Elon Musk.
You know, we don't have to go to see the doctor as much if you just watch what you eat. Yeah, I know it sucks. Trust me, I know. I'm a freaking chubby guy. I love food. I love to eat. A lot of things are delicious. But I know I can't just eat whatever the heck I want and expect to be healthy. Especially now that I'm getting older. I am 41 years old now. These things are bigger priorities to me, especially because I want to be able to see my kids grow up and get married. I want to be able to see my kids grow up and meet my grandchildren someday. And so, yes, it might suck that I can't eat that cheeseburger right now, but you know what? It'll be well worth it when I get to hold my grandchild in my arms. And that's what people don't think about. They're just too involved in just thinking about themselves and what keeps them healthy, what keeps them happy at the moment. Sometimes it's not just about the short term. Sometimes it's about the long term. And that's something that I've gotten from learning about conservatism these last few years, is that it's not just about you and, yucking someone else's yum. It's about teaching people about long-term happiness. And yes, things are hard. Marriage is hard. Raising children is hard. Eating healthier diets is hard. It's very hard because we as human beings want to just indulge in what makes us feel good. But in the long term, all these things pay off. Francesca Fiorentini and all these other lunatic lefties, they just still don't get it. They just want you to they just want the government to throw taxpayer-funded money at all the issues and just depend on daddy government to take care of all of our issues for us. That is not how it works. In the end of the day, we are all responsible for ourselves. But what do you guys think about today's clip? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed today's clip. You'll be helping me out a lot. And if you did enjoy today's clip, if you like seeing Francesca Fiorentini make an ass out of herself, I got a whole playlist for you that you can binge on for your entertainment pleasure. And if you like seeing Piers Morgan panels, I got a playlist for you too. And if you want to just see more of other things I got a lot of more of entertaining videos like this that I think you'll enjoy.